Hi class, welcome back to our lesson 2 today. We're going to be talking about x and y intercepts. So before we start, let's just start off with some definitions. The x-intercept is the value at which the graph meets the x-axis. The value for y will always be 0 at the x-intercept. So I'm just going to go in and draw this in for you. So this is our Cartesian plane. And so your x-intercept is just going to be the value at which it crosses the x-axis, right? So when it goes past that horizontal x-axis, that is going to be our x-intercept, and you'll notice here that you'll have some sort of an x value, but y will always be 0. Okay? And the y-intercept is the value at which the graph meets the y-axis, right? So the value of x at this point is always going to be 0. So I'm just going to go in and draw in what this will look like. Just a quick sketch. I'm just going to use a ruler this time around. So if you have this right here, you have your Cartesian plane, right? So you have your x or your y-axis that runs up and down, and your x-axis that runs side to side. And so an intercept, your y-intercept here would be when the x is equal to 0. So that's going to be over here. So say you were to have this line that was being drawn, right? I'm just going to draw a line here for clarity's sake. This right here, where it crosses that vertical line, is going to be our y-intercept because that's your y-axis. And again, you'll notice that while x is 0, y is going to have some value, right? So if you were to go down and look at it from here, I'm just going to make the y-intercept green, and I'm going to make the x-intercept this pink color. Right, your x-intercept is going to be right here where x is equal to 0, right? And your y-intercept, or sorry, when y is equal to 0, and your x-intercept is going to be right here. So your y-intercept is going to be right here when x is equal to 0. So how I like to actually remember these is your y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So it's the opposite. Right? So your y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So you'll notice right here, x is 0, but you have a y value, right? And then your x-intercept is when y is equal to 0, but you have an x value, right? So it's just the opposite. And that's going to be important to remember. So I might just write that as a note. So y-intercept, right? X is equal to 0, and then x-intercept, and it gets confusing sometimes, so just remember logically what it looks like, right? The x-intercept is when it crosses that x threshold, that vertical line, so your y value there is equal to 0, and then the y-intercept is when it crosses that y threshold, so your x value is equal to 0. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of practice with this. So how do we determine x and y intercepts given the equation of a line? So if I'm given the equation of a line, this is kind of the ideal situation, other than getting a graph, obviously, right, of figuring out what our x and y intercepts are. So just as a reminder, our little note that we're going to write ourselves, at y-intercept, x is equal to 0. At x-intercept, y is equal to 0. Right? That's just a friendly reminder that we write ourselves. So let's determine the x and y intercepts here. So let's start off with trying to find the x-intercepts. So I'm just going to split these up a little bit so that I have different things to work with. I'm just going to change the color of my pen to blue. Right? So we have 3x minus 4y plus 12 here. We know that at our x-intercept, which is going to be indicated by this blue, y is equal to 0. So it's really easy actually to find these. You just go and sub y with 0. So just go in and change all the values of y to 0. So let's do that. 3x minus 4y, which is going to be 0, plus 12 equals 0. Right? And now let's solve this. We have 3x. 4 times 0 is just going to be 0. Minus, right, plus 12. Since it's negative 4 times 0, we're just going to get rid of that negative. So we're just going to do plus 12 equals 0, right? So I'm left with 3x plus 12. Now I just want to isolate for x because that's what I'm trying to find. Right? So I have negative 12 because I have minus 12 on both sides. Divided by 3, divided by 3. So x equals negative 12 divided by 3 is going to give me negative 4. That means, therefore, the point of the x-intercept, or the coordinates, is negative 4, and the y we already said was 0 because we had that already. Right? And let's just try to do that with the x-intercept. I'm going to do this with an orange marker right here. So I'm just going to go back and change this to orange. So the y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So same idea, just sub in 0 for x. Right? So let's go do that. 3x minus 4y plus 12 equals 0. Right? So I'm just going to put in 0. 3 times 0 minus 4. Y is what we're trying to find. 12 equals 0. Right? 0 minus 4y plus 12 equals 0. Right? So the 0 just is gone. So I'm left with negative 4y plus 12 equals 0. In order to get that 4y by itself, I'm just going to subtract 12 on both sides. Right? So I'm left with negative 4y equals 0 minus 12, which is just minus 12, divided by 4 to get rid of that 4. Negative 4, rather. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is going to be positive 3. And that's going to be my answer. So I know, therefore, the coordinates, or the points, right? Coordinates of the y-intercept are, we know 0 is going to be x, and we know that 3 is going to be y. Right? So just make sure you're writing in the right points. Just remember that depending on what you're looking for, you will have, if you're looking for the y-intercept, you know your x will be 0. If you're looking for the x-intercept, you know your y will be 0. Right? So then you're just looking for the other point on that graph. All right, so I'm going to have you try and do example 2 on your own, as well as example 3, and then we'll move on and we'll see how we can use this to actually determine the equation of a line, right? So yesterday we talked about the equation of a line using 2 different points. Today we're going to talk about x and y intercepts, or 2 days ago rather. All right, so pause this video and then come back when you're done. Alrighty, let's move on. Okay, so hopefully you had paused that video and now you're going to come back and watch this. So it says, given the line y equals 4x minus 1, determine the x and y intercept. So we're just going to use the same colors here. So I'm going to start off with the blue for the x-intercept and then the orange for the y-intercept. Right? Same logic is to be applied. So I'm just going to make this line here to separate it. Okay. Same logic is going to be applied. So let's do for the x-intercept, right? We know that y is equal to 0. So our point is going to be x something, x 0. So we're looking for what this x value is, right? So let's just plug that in. So let's do y equals 4x minus 1. Y is 0, so I'm going to make the y 0, 4x minus 1, right? To get rid of that minus 1 on one side, I'm going to add 1 on both. 0 plus 1 is just 1. 4x, this is going to cancel out. Divide both sides by 4. So then I know that 1 over 4 is x, right? So I know, therefore, and this is important, you can't just leave it as 1 over 4 is x. You have to write 1 over 4 coordinate 0, or 1 over 4 comma 0 is the x-intercept. You have to write the coordinated pairs, otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? So you have to write the statement here that I just wrote. Okay, let's try the same logic with the y-intercept, right? So I'm just going to make this orange, right? So I have y equals 4x minus 1, and this one's actually pretty easy because I know that y, for the y-intercept, x is equal to 0, right? So x is equal to 0. So y equals 4 times 0 minus 1, just plugging in the 0 for the x. Y equals 4 times 0 is just 0, minus 1 is negative 1, right? So therefore, the y-intercept is 0, negative 1. And you'll remember from when we learned y equals mx plus b, that makes sense because that's b, right? And our b value is always going to be our negative 1. So if you remember that from yesterday's class where we learned y equals mx plus b, that makes sense. Our b value always represents our x coordinate, or our y-intercept anyway. So we could have figured it out like that as well. So it says here, given the line x plus 3y minus 9 equals 0, determine the y and x intercepts. So same idea, let's just go through it, right? Let's find the x-intercept, and then what we're going to do is we're also going to use two ways for you to find, or it's okay, we'll use the regular way for you to find the y-intercept. You could just rearrange this equation and isolate and get the y by itself, and then that way you could find the y-intercept, but for the purposes of this lesson, we're not going to do it that way. Okay, so let's just do this. So I know where my, oops, I'm going to put this in blue, so my x-intercept's in blue and my y is in orange, right? So my x-intercept is when y is equal to 0, right? Then we do x plus 3y minus 9 equals 0. So I'm just going to go plug in 0 for the y. So x plus 3 times 0 minus 9 equals 0. X 3 times 0 is just 0. Minus 9 equals 0. X minus 9, right? If I want to get it, the x by itself, I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So I'm left with x minus 9 plus 9 will cancel. 0 plus 9 is just 9. So my x is 9. And of course, I'm not done yet. I need to make sure I write therefore my x-intercept is 9, which is the x value, and 0, which is the y value. Right, so moving on, I'm going to move on to y-intercept. And of course, you can pause this whenever you want, but try going through it by yourself first. So y-intercept is equal to x equals 0, right? So we're just going to do that. X plus 3y minus 9 equals 0. I'm going to go back in and plug the x in. So I have 0 plus 3y minus 9 equals 0, right? That 0 doesn't matter, so we're just going to write 3y minus 9 equals 0. In order to get rid of that minus 9, I'm going to add 9 to both sides, right? So I'm left with 3y minus 9 plus 9 is just 0 equals 0 plus 9 is 9, right? I want to get rid of that 3. I'm going to divide because we're multiplying right now. So then I'm left with y equals 9 divided by 3, which is just 3. Right? And I'm not done yet because I need to write my coordinates. So therefore, the y-intercept is 0 and 3. Right? And I'm just going to highlight that for myself. That's my answer. And we're done. Right? You need to make sure you write that part at the end because otherwise it won't make sense. So that was the easy part. And I don't know why the rest of this hasn't shown up. So I will add the video after. So we're just going to move on to part B here. So we're starting off, and what we're going to be doing in part B is we're actually going to be using the x and y intercepts to determine the equation of the line, right? So how you would do this is it's actually a kind of 1 or 2 step process. The first thing I would do is just remember what the equation of the line actually is. So if we look back at it, we know we need to find y equals mx plus b. So if you remember back to our lesson 1, right, which talked about finding a point and then using that point to find the equation of the line, right? Oops, sorry, I just turned around. Right, using that point to find the equation of the line. We're using the same logic here. Though x and y intercept are points on the line. Points on the line that we can find using our understanding of where they are and having to find the slope, and then using the slope point method to find the equation of that line, which we did yesterday anyway. So if I told you, determine the equation of the line passing through the points, which is your x and y intercepts here, right? You can easily find that equation of the line because now you have 2 points on the line. So go back to yesterday's lesson, the last few, or 2 days ago's lesson, the last couple of points on that were how to do that. So if you have 2 points on a line, the first thing you're going to want to do is step 1 is going to be find slope, right? So step 1, find the slope, right? And then step 2 is going to be using point slope formula, find the equation. The other way to do this, and I'll show you what it is, the other way to do this is another simple way, which is since you have the y-intercept, you can just use the y-intercept as your b value, right? And I'll show you that after. All right, so let's do the first way first. So step 1, I'm just going to circle it as 1 here, right, is going to be, let's find the slope here. So y equals mx plus b. So I know that m is going to equal y2 minus y1, right, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right, y2 minus y1, let's just go in here and sub in some of our formulas. So I'm going to do x1, y1, x2, y2, right, so let's just use those numbers. So y2 is 0, y1 is 5, x2 is negative 4, x1 is 0, so let's just go in and solve that. M is equal to 0 minus negative 5 is just negative 5 over negative 4, so I know that m is equal to 5 over 4, so that's my slope, right? Let's go plug that back into the slope point method. You can pick either one of them. I'm going to pick 0 and 5 just because I like that point better. So I'm going to say, okay, y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1, right? Let's just plug in our values. So I said y minus y1 is 5 equals m, which we said was 5 over 4. X minus x1 is going to be 0, right? So y minus 5 equals 5 over 4 times x, right? You're just distributing it in. 5 over 4 times 0 is just 0, so I'm not even going to bother adding that in, right? And I'm just going to take the y. I want to get rid of that negative 5, so I'm going to add 5 on both sides, right? So it's equal to 5 over 4x plus 5, right? This cancels out, so I'm left with y equals 5 over 4x plus 5. That is one way to do it. And absolutely the right way to do it. It's up to you if you would like to do it this way. Another way you could do this, right, using the same logic of using y equals mx plus b, is if you have y equals mx plus b, right, and you look over here and you say, okay, I have the b value, and the b value is the y-intercept, right? So I know what b is, so I know b is equal to 5. I have another set of coordinates, which is negative 4 and 0, right? So I have another x and y, which is negative 4 and 0, because I have the x-intercept. All I'm missing here is the m. And if I just plug these values in, I can actually find the slope, right? And because I can find the slope that way, I can find the equation of the line that way as well. So I can say, okay, let's do this. I have negative 4. So y equals mx plus b. So I have y, which is 0, is, right, because I'm doing negative 4 and 0. So y equals 0, m, we don't know, right? That's what we're looking for. And then we're looking, we know x is -4, plus we know b is 5, right? So we're just going to go plug all that values in. So I'm going to say, okay, 0 equals -4m plus 5. I'm going to want to get rid of the 5 on this side, so I'm going to minus 5 on both sides. So I'm left with -5 equals -4m divided by -4 divided by -4, right? So 5/4 equals m, right? And I can just go plug everything back into y equals mx plus b, right? I just needed to go plug that m back in, so I'm going to say 5/4x plus 5. A little bit of a faster way of doing this, but again, whichever way you're most comfortable with, you do that way. Okay? So for the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to find the x, I'm going to determine the equation of the line with the x-intercept that is the same as 3x minus y plus 6 and the slope of -6. So the first thing I'm going to do when I'm solving something like this is, what is it actually asking me? It's asking me to find this y equals mx plus b of this line that has the same intercept as the x-intercept for 3x minus y plus 6 equals 0. They are not the same line, right? Because this other line has a different slope. But I can use what I know about y-intercepts to figure out what that is. Okay? All right. So we know that it has the same intercept as the line 3x minus y plus 6 equals 0 and a slope of 6. So in this situation, I know my m is equal to -6, right? And I know my y-intercept is going to be the same as that one. So the thing I'm going to do is find the y-intercept first of all, right? So let's just write down m is equal to 6. But step 1 is going to be find the x-intercept because they're the same. Find x-intercept of line by subbing 0 for y, because we know at the x-intercept 0 is the y value. So let's just go write that out, and I'm just going to highlight this in the blue, right? So I know 3x minus 6 plus 6 equals 0, so I just need to find the y-intercept by subbing that y in. So 3x is what we're trying to find, minus 0 plus 6 is equal to 0, right? 3x, 0 plus 6 is just 6, right? So plus 6 is equal to 0, right? We can move that 6 to the other side, so both sides becomes minus 6. 3x, 6 minus 6 is just 0. 0 minus 6 is -6, right? And I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get rid of the 3 in front of the x. So then x is equal to -6/3, which is just -2. Therefore, the x-intercept is -2 and 0. Now we have a point on the line, right? So we can find the b. We have the slope, we have a random point on the line, and you can either use the slope point method form, or you can use the y equals mx plus b form. Whichever way you find more comfortable doing this, use that form. So for the purposes of this one, I'll use the slope point form just to walk everybody through how to do it again. But I have a point on the graph, which is 2 and 0, or -2 and 0, right? I have my slope, which is -6, because that was given to me, right? So I'm going to do y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1, right? Y minus 0 is equal to -6, x minus -2, right? Y minus 0 is just y equals -6. X, the minus and the minus become a plus, so it becomes +2, right? Then we're going to distribute that -6 in, so we have -6x minus 12, right? So y equals negative 6x minus 12, and that is the equation of the line. Oops, I'm just going to make this look a little nicer. Maybe I'll just put in a highlight. So that's my equation of the line, right? Another way that you could have done this is you could have been like, okay, and I'm just going to write a big OR here, right? Another way you could have done this, so that's step 2, and then you get the equation of the line by the end of it. Or what you could have done is been like, okay, I know m is equal to negative 6, right? I know x and y are negative 2 and 0, right? I need to just find my b. So if I have y equals mx plus b, I can just substitute all these values in. So I can say, okay, y is equal to 0, m is equal to negative 6, x is equal to negative 2 plus b. That's what I'm looking for, right? So then I'm going to say, okay, 0 is equal to negative 6 times negative 12 is going to be positive. I'm sorry, negative 2 is positive 12 plus b. Right, I want to get the 12 on the other side, so I'm going to minus 12 on both sides. 0 minus 12 is going to give me negative 12 is equal to b. Right? Now that I know my b value, I can just go back in and fill in my equation. So my equation of the line is y equals negative 6x minus 12. Either way, your answer is right. It just depends on which way you are more comfortable doing it. I really don't have a preference at all. Just whatever way makes more logical sense to you. Okay? All right. So the last one, it says, determine the equation of the line. So now we've gone from determine the equation of the line when you're given its x and y intercepts. Did that super easy. Moved on, and we had just the x-intercept for another line. Now we're moving on to example 6, which is determine the equation of the line that has the same x-intercept as a line 2x plus 3y plus 4 equals 0. Okay, so if you're given something like this, you need to realize that there's going to be two separate things that you need to do in order to determine the equation of this line. The first thing you're going to have to do is find the y-intercept of line 1. So I'm going to make that the blue line. And then you have to find the x-intercept of line 1 and the y-intercept of line 2. So there's 2 points on this graph. It just will take you extra steps to find what those 2 points are. You can't just plug in numbers here, right? So let's do this. And we don't know the slope. So this is a little bit more tricky. So for step 1, what you're going to do here is, let's find the x-intercept. Let's go ahead and just find the x-intercept because it says that it has the same x-intercept as line 1. So let's find the x-intercept of line 1. Right? So I'm just going to put this in blue. So the x-intercept is when y is equal to 0. So I'm just going to plug y into that 2x plus 3y plus 4 equals 0 formula. So I'm going to say 2x plus 3 times 0 plus 4 is equal to 0, right? 2x, 3 times 0 is just 0, plus 4 is equal to 0. 2x. I want to get rid of that plus 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. Equals 0, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So this cancels. So I'm left with 2x equals 0 minus 4 is just negative 4. Right, I want to get the x by itself, so I divide both sides by 2, so I'm left with x is equal to negative 2. Right, so if x is equal to negative 2, therefore a point on the graph, which is the x-intercept, is negative 2 and 0. So now I have a point on the graph already. So I'm just going to put this in blue. I know that one of my points is going to be negative 2 and 0. Let's move on and find our y-intercept here. So let's find our y-intercept. So to find y-intercept of line 2, right? Because that's the one that it shares it with. So I'm just going to put this in pink. Right, so I believe the equation is 6y plus 12 equals 0. And I know the y-intercept is when x is equal to 0, right? Just the opposite is equal to 0. So let's put in 0 for x, minus 6y plus 12 equals 0. Negative 6y plus 12 equals 0. I want to get rid of the 12 on that side, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides, right? Plus 12 minus 12, cancel that out. So I'm left with negative 6 equals 0 minus 12 is just negative 12. Divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6 to cancel these out. And y is negative 12 over negative 6 is just positive 2, right? Or negative 12 over negative 6, right? So therefore, the second point on this line, therefore the y-intercept of the line, or another point on the line, is going to be 0, which is our x, and 2, which is our y, right? We also know that b is going to equal 2 because that's going to be our y-intercept, okay? So depending on what method you would like to use, so I'm going to use the slope point method, right? So I'm going to say, okay, do I know what the slope is in this situation? No, right? So I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to find the slope. How you can find that, if you have 2 points on the graph, you can simply find the slope by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is our slope, right? So let's do that. So I'll do slope point method and then I'll do the other y equals mx plus b method as well. So step 3, find slope using the 2 coordinates you found. So you're going to use negative 2 and 0, and you're going to use 0 and 2. Right? So I'm going to say this is x1, y1. I'm going to say this is x2, y2, right? And I'm just going to plug it back into my formula for slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? Which is going to give me y2, we said was 2, minus y1, which is 0, over x2, which is 0, minus negative 2, right? 2 minus 0 is going to be 2. The 0 and the plus, so it becomes 0 plus 2, right? Because the negative and the negative. This is not y, this is m. So m equals 2 over 2, which is also just 1. Right, so I know my slope is 1. And then I can just go in and use my slope point method to do this. Or if I know that my slope is 1, I can also just say, okay, my b value is 2. My slope is 1. I can just plug it in from there, right? Or you can go ahead and do the slope point method. Whichever way works for you. You do whatever you find is most comfortable for you. Just, yeah, do whatever works for you best. Okay? So here I'm going to write step 4. Use slope point method to find equation, right? And then we'll do or with the other ones, and I'll show you how to do them. Okay, so let's do y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1, right? So we're just going to use 2 points on the graph. So I used, let's use negative 2 and 0 here. So I'm going to do y1 is 0 equals m, which we said was just 1, x minus negative 2, right? So y equals 1 x plus 2, y equals x plus 2. And that's the equation of my line, right? You could have also done, because you knew what b was here, right? So I'm just going to write a big fat or here. Or because you knew what b was here, right, you could have done y equals, and then you found the m up here, y equals mx plus b. So you could have done y equals 1 x plus 2, which is y equals x plus 2. You could have done it that way. Or even more so, you could have done it this way. You could have done from after step 2, you knew what y was. You had a y and an x, right? So you had an x and a y, which was your negative 2 and 0, right? You had your b, which was 2. All you were missing was your m, right? So you could have done y equals mx plus b, which is y. We're going to say is 0, right? M, we don't know yet. X, we know is negative 2 plus b, which is just 2. So 0 equals negative 2m plus 2. Carry the m to the other side, or the 2 to the other side to get rid of it, right? 0 minus negative 2, or 0 minus 2 rather, is just negative 2. Negative 2m. To get rid of the to get the m by itself, we're just going to divide each side by negative 2, so I know that m is going to be 1, right? And then I'm going to say the same thing, y equals mx plus b. I know my y is 1, or my m is 1, x plus, I know my 2 is my b, so y equals x plus 2. There's 3 ways to get to the same answer. Whichever way you find most comfortable is the one that you should do. I will mark all of them correct. And that is the end of this lesson. Thank you.